I would start at the obvious place, which is the writing. If you don't have a script, there's nothing you can do. It's very important that there's a story that's being told that's compelling, that there's characters that you care about. I do believe that, like with cooking, you need humor, but just a little bit, like with cooking, just a little bit of salt, in case anyone's wondering whether or not you should put humor in cooking, which you probably should. But it's just important that the characters feel real. Long before you get to the powers and the enemy and is the world going to crack in half, or all that's unimportant. If you don't care about the people, you're lost. There's nothing you can do. So can you tell the story without the powers? Now add the powers and see what that does and how that makes it challenging. I think a lot of people who don't watch what I refer to as genre television or genre movies or genre animation for that matter, if they don't know it, then they think, oh, it's just people fighting, or it's just about spaceships. It's not. It's about characters and drama and life and something that I think is really important, which is it's about hope. A really good superhero story should have hope. Even if it's the darkest Batman, Daredevil nightmare that you can imagine, you should be able to come out of it winning and believing in the people, because that's about as close as you can get to what life is about. And if you don't have hope, you don't have anything. Well, I think I got asked into television because I knew a lot about comic books. So whether it was Buffy or whether it was Smallville, even Lost in many ways had some elements that were genre, not superpowers, but although people did things that were a little larger than life, and certainly heroes. And then when I was running Marvel Television, that was my responsibility, was to tell those stories. It was not to tell stories about regular people. But I wrote a lot of movies that many people don't know that got made that my name is not on, and I'm sorry I can't give you your money back. But comedies and silly things that were important at the time for the audience. But I think because so much of where my success has been in the world of genre fiction and specifically in superheroes, that once that became a very popular place for people to work and to tell stories in and for the audiences to go to, I was very lucky that people went, you know how to do that, go do that in this other medium. And the one thing I knew to do was to hire very talented people who maybe didn't know anything about comic books. I was the one who gave Melissa Rosenberg the Alias books and said, because she'd said, I really want to tell a story with someone who's broken, like a female house. That's what she pitched. And I said, here, read this. She called the next day and said, I want to do Jessica Jones. And I went, great, let's go find Jessica Jones. Together we found Kristen Ritter. It was a kind of magic that worked. When we started on Daredevil, it came down to 2 actors to play Daredevil. One looked like a traditional superhero, looked like Henry Cavill. Is so handsome and so perfect. And it wasn't Henry that was trying out, but this is what the actor was. He was a square-jawed, great-looking. And you have to remember that I was the little brother to the movie division. The movie division had Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth and Robert Downey Jr., and they were some of the most perfect human beings on the planet. And then Charlie Cox came in. And I think Charlie's very handsome, but he was not the first person that, certainly the network, and certainly Marvel, except for Joe Quesada, who people would have thought of to play Matt Murdock. They wanted they wanted their Chris Hemsworth. And that was my job. My job was to say, and I have to give a lot of credit to my casting director, Lorraine Mayfield, who sat me down and said, what do you want to do? Do you want to do what everybody else is doing? Or do you want to say to the world, Marvel Television doesn't look like anything else. That's what you've been telling people. You don't want to do stories that are brightly lit. You want to do stories that are dark and take place in Hell's Kitchen and have steam coming up from the streets and mostly take place at night. And so you need actors who live in that world. That's not to say that Mike Colter, who played Luke Cage, isn't the most gorgeous man on the planet. But I also have to say that when Mike walked in, and I've told this story, Mike and I came up on the elevator together. He didn't know who I was. I didn't know who he was, but I knew that he was an actor. And I come into the room, and the Cheo Coker, who was the showrunner, and some of the other people, the casting director, and just literally like 3 or 4 people are in the room. And I come in all excited, and I said, I just came up on the elevator with Luke Cage. And they went, what? And I said, oh, I just came up on the elevator with Luke Cage. And they said, you mean you came up with an actor who's reading for Luke Cage? I said, no, when this guy walks in, he looks exactly like Luke Cage does in the comics. I don't know if he can act. Please let him be able to act. And then Mike came in and he killed it. It was perfect. And it was one of the easiest jobs in the world. We read a lot of people, but when he read with Kristen and there was chemistry, and when she looked at him, she was like, you're maybe the most gorgeous man I've ever seen in my life, and didn't have that kind of chemistry with any of the other people that you read with. It was easy peasy. Because I don't think a lot of people remember that Mike was first on Jessica Jones before he had his own television show. But it was a challenge because whoever we hired was then going to be on his own television show. So we had to make sure that this person could not only be the second actor behind Kristen, Jessica, but then could go and carry his own show. And it worked. I'm very honored that a lot of people say that they're making television the way that Jeph Loeb made television. It wasn't the way that Jeph Loeb made television, it was the way that Marvel Television worked. We had the best writers. I had 125 people who worked for me that were as brilliant as anything I could ever want. And yes, I had a certain idea as to what the television division should look like that was different from the movie division. Was it challenging that every single time I said it's all connected, that the movie division would say, no, it's not? They're their sort of own little universe. Is it ironic that now they're looking at all of the shows that I produced and said, we should do that? That's good. But I don't work there anymore. I don't have anything to do with those decisions. What really makes me happy, more than anything else, more than whether or not I get any credit, is that the people that I know and love, like Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio and Deborah Ann Hall and John Bernthal, people that we found, Christian Ritter and Mike Colter and everybody that's on S.H.I.E.L.D., those people are getting a chance to play those roles again. That's all I care about. There's some of the same crew, there's some of the same stunt people. That's what makes a difference. And a lot of the writers that I know are working on those things. So I'm just glad that the people that I found have now, in some cases 10 years later, are back doing the jobs that they were doing. And it's particularly important to me that, because Daredevil was sort of the first of those shows that they said, we want to do this again, that my friends that are on those shows are able to have that experience again. It's a different experience. There's different people. I'm not there. But I know enough people who are saying they took what you did and they're making more of it. And that's lovely. I'm much happier that my friends are happy.